Welcome to another video of Film Addicts. This is Chili.
And I'm Kent.
And we just finished part 2 of our 3-film series of the trilogy of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Or just Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the Apes. Second one, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. We did a video on Rise. And wow, this one was... They just took it to another level on this one.
You know, every now and then you come across a trilogy where the second film is the best film.
Yeah.
Right? So,
the first trilogy of Star Wars.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, it's not even that common where the second one's the best one. But like I said, every now and then.
Every now and then.
So, for example, really everybody, I think, the majority of folks. I mean, the third Dark Knight movie was good. But the Dark Knight, straight
with the
up,
Joker,
and that to me, that's sort of what Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is.
Yeah, I didn't remember it being this fucking good.
I saw this in
the
theaters.
First one, you know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, there was just a lot of it was like very Shakespearean and all kinds of shit going on in their betrayal and.
I don't have any real complaints about this movie. That's something. When we were gonna start this trilogy, I'm not gonna lie, a part of me was like, okay, I can't wait to see the second one again. It's one of those movies that I look forward to watching. And the first one was good.
It was a good setup.
But here's the thing: there's a difference between a good movie and a movie where you're just like, damn, man, I'm glad I got to like experience this. This is every scene in that movie and the build up. The tension, you got brotherhood, you have betrayal, the way everything's set up, all like the plot, I think it all made sense to me. You know, it didn't seem like too much
because
of a stretch.
I mean, I thought Koba was a very complex character because he was like scarred and he was hurt from like the treatment of being in the lab and everything, and then he felt like, oh, I gotta warn the others. Like he's really thinking that. You know, he just doesn't trust them, for one thing.
Well, Koba, and then you already know these characters enough to the point where it's like, Koba, he got the worst side of humanity. Yeah. He said, what he said?
They're doing human work.
Yeah, human work, right? He's pointing to all his scars, human work, all these things. But
he knows from being raised by,
Franco's
character that, he's seen the other side. But then, ironically, Koba turns out to be more human than human.
Well, if we want to do the whole Star Wars example, what I like is in Revenge of the Sith, sort of how Obi-Wan and Anakin teamed up against Count Dooku. You sort of have that with the opening scene where they're hunting, all the apes are hunting together, and the bear pops on out and it's going to kill Caesar's son, Blue Eyes, or whatever his actual...
Blue Eyes, that's from the first real movie, Charleston Heston.
And...
Bright Eyes.
Yeah, and then we have Koba pop out of the woodwork, kill the bear, and save Caesar. Later on, just to find that here's Koba and Caesar having an epic showdown on the tower, right? Where all the apes are bearing witness because they have these traditions that say the strongest rules. So everything about the movie, though,
well, he turned into a tyrant because the son told Caesar, like, everyone is following Koba because they're in fear, while the other ones that are loyal, they're just imprisoned. You know what I mean?
Well, there's the way the relationships are formed too. So you have Maurice, where he never got to understand the kindness. He never was shown the kindness from the humans, right? And then he ends up creating a bond with one of the boys who's into reading comics and books, and that's just one of the little dynamics. There's a lot of dynamics throughout that movie where I can appreciate what's going on. So their journeys. So again, I'll reference Caesar's son, who's sort of like a teenager. His dad's kind of played out, and the fact that he thinks his dad's wrong, and his dad is in love with humans and cares more about humans than apes. He gets all caught up into this, and he has all these whispers kind of feeding that sort of...
Well, yeah, Koba was already manipulating him, saying, "Oh, I fear for your dad's life," and that means he was going to do some work.
Yeah, and he ends up following along with it, right? It sounds like a great idea at first, but then Koba betrays Caesar, and he leads all the apes into battle. And next thing you know, Caesar's son is looking around just like, damn. And I feel like it's probably the same equivalent to somebody who was pro, let's go fight communism in Vietnam. Then they get to Vietnam, and they're like, fuck this, Agent Orange, all this other bullshit's going on.
Yeah, because they weren't prepared. At first they weren't like, but then, Koba was a great warrior, though. I mean, he had a lot of just...
Oh, he boosted the morale.
Yeah, he had a lot of rage in him.
He's running around with, like, 2 guns on a horseback. He's taking out tanks.
Yeah, he had a lot of rage. He had a lot of, from just being locked up and then, being experimented on. And
it was interesting, too, the whole... just the imagery of seeing, like, an ape, right, decide to put other apes in prison because their allegiance... So
Koba's the same shit.
Koba's like a tactician. If anything, Koba was the most human in the negative side of all of us. Like he got the worst of us. So I guess he was projecting the worst of us onto not only the apes, but not only the humans, but the apes themselves. So we kind of expected him to do messed up crap to the humans, right?
Yeah.
But once he even was pushing, who was it? It was Rocket's son. Which
Rocket wouldn't kill the guy.
Yeah, Rocket was the guy who got he was the one that was bullying Caesar in the first movie, and when they were locked up.
Yeah.
And then Rocket came around, became a loyal friend, and Rocket had a son, which his name was Ash, and then Ash, at one point tried to basically.
He was the one shot in the beginning.
He was shot in the beginning, but later on when Koba leads everyone into battle, there's a human being that Koba pretty much says, take him out, Ash, get revenge, because, like you said, Ash got shot at the beginning by a human. But then Ash is like, no, this is not what Caesar would want. Koba doesn't want to hear that. What does he do? He makes an example out of him. And so Caesar has these laws, right? And it's nice seeing Koba say, fuck those laws. He grabs Ash in front of all the other apes, throws him off the tower to make an example of him. There's just a lot of symbolic stuff that happens throughout and it's heavy, emotionally heavy, because you see these decisions. I like a movie where there's a hard decision, but throughout the entire film, it's hard decision after hard decision.
Well, that could be a convenient too. Like, it's a convenient that she is a doctor, right?
And she didn't say she was a doctor.
Well, she
had antibiotics. It's not convenient that you have antibiotics, okay? In a post-apocalyptic world, I guarantee
After 10 years, that's why I was like, okay, well, they have a bunch of shit still.
Well, I mean, there's all of San Francisco is abandoned. I'm sure you're going to find some antibiotics.
Within 10 years? Okay, well, anyways.
I'm just not letting that slide. That's not. If she had a background at the CDC,
she was in the CDC.
So she had some understanding of medicine to a degree. So it makes sense that she'd have medicine. But yeah.
The wife that's starting to get sick or whatever.
He ends up. Oh, and he even Caesar even goes. There's a lot of fan service. You brought something up. Caesar goes back to his original home from the first movie, right?
Right.
And then Ash, Caesar's son, he ends up seeing that Caesar's still alive. He apologizes. He has this whole coming of age thing, oh my God, I was wrong. My dad was
manipulated.
My dad was right. And then Caesar spent some time up in the attic where he looked at a film of Franco, and then he saw how things have changed. The house is all broken down. Humans are all gone, and it was cool because we have a human. I forgot what the actor's name is, but not
Dennis
Gary Oldman, the other one.
The one who's playing Malcolm?
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot his name.
Well, Malcolm and Caesar throughout the entire film are trying to do what's best for their people, but they also want to I wouldn't say form an alliance, but they want to avoid war at all costs. And this is one of those type of situations where
just takes one on each side.
It just takes one on each side. right?
Yeah.
Whoever throws the stone. Next thing you know, one guy throws one stone, bam, all out war.
Yeah, and they, that the way that Koba set it up and just manipulated everything and everyone to go follow him, like, oh yeah, they, killed, they had the human gun and whatever, and he's the one who did it.
There's so many.
It started the fires, or like very Hitler, like start the Reichstag fire and blame it on, their enemies or whatever, and just take over.
Ton of scenes that I love. Koba pretending to be a dumb circus monkey.
Yeah.
He sneaks up on some soldiers. He starts like blowing some raspberries at them and twirling around, doing
little tricks,
rolling. And next thing you know, he takes the bottle of Blue Label, swigs it, spits it out, chuckles at the soldiers, grabs a gun, and bam, bam, bam.
That's it.
Sprays them. I'm like, damn, Koba's cold. Yeah. Koba was
cool. I did he was a good villain. But see, that's the thing. He's a villain, but there's some reasons why he did the thing he did. But I think he went later on when he was just shooting his own people, and not giving a fuck when he was.
Oh yeah, and Caesar calls him out on his bullshit, and it's nice to see because nobody has equal footing to Koba except for Caesar, right? And I like how there's that polarity where they have different views, but Koba was Koba was a necessary evil for a long time. If it wasn't for Koba, I think in the first film, they probably still would have made it up into the mountains and stuff. But I feel like Koba was a huge part of setting up that civilization. Like he was a cornerstone of it. I would assume. Like in terms of like the hunting and the aggression that came with it because it was needed. But in a peaceful world, Kobas don't do well. So I think Koba was when it came to the whole war and battle. That's what he's all about.
Yeah, but that's the thing though. He was acting on fear that they were gonna get more power from the you know what I mean, and then just annihilate all of them. I mean, he has to think that way because that's he's coming from the lab. You know what I mean? He still has that, those thoughts. While his thoughts are not like that. His thoughts were like, oh, I came up from in a good area. You know what I mean? I wasn't treated like that or whatever, but, it's very, I just thought the two characters were really, really complex and just
the way they interact together was, I enjoyed it. What was great too about this movie, although it's really heavy dependent on CGI, so there's not a ton of dialogue between the apes. The way they set it up, it's like you don't even need a ton of dialogue. The few words they do say, you really pay attention, and there's not a word that's wasted between the apes talking.
Yeah.
And the sign language and the way they look at each other and the movements, I'm like, you know what?
Well, it's cool too because when he's watching the whole movie, then you see him teaching Caesar sign language. Mm-hmm. So it kind of goes, oh, okay.
I think that the majority of things in this movie, I haven't dug insanely deep into it, but it all makes sense to me. Like, I didn't find myself going, wait, what? Like, I wasn't... A lot of times there's at least one moment in a movie where you go like, all right, that's a bit of a stretch. But everything seemed... I could buy everything, and it wasn't too much of a stretch for me. But that's what's weird. A movie with apes, with guns, and riding horses, and all the other crap that happens in this movie... You would think there'd be a lot of moments where you're like, "Oh my god, this is ridiculous."
Well, I mean, because it shows
didn't feel ridiculous at all.
Yeah, I mean, but it did show that some were more advanced than others. Because there are some that are on horses and some that are not. There are some still developing.
Yeah, there's a hierarchy. You mentioned the orangutans.
Yeah, because when he started reading the book, he was more prone to doing that than later on when we get to the original. Planet of the Apes, it's the elder statesmen are all orangutans. They're all the smart ones, kind of like who understand history and everything, and while the chimpanzees just are reduced to scientists and stuff.
Yeah, and it alludes to that by him showing him with the book and everything else, and the way that he wants to spend time getting to explore the knowledge of humanity rather than just fight.
Yeah. So it's kind of tying in with the first one as well.
And it shows the brutality of war, on both sides, right? Sometimes you'll watch a movie and you see war happening, and you're like, oh, you gotta kill the. You're always like pro one side or the other, but you just see humans getting mauled, thrown into cages. You see the apes, like there's a
But
gorilla
you know what though?
dragging another.
I mean, when Koba did go there and saw the armory and saw that they were just preparing, you'd have to think like, I mean, yeah, they are gonna take him out. There's no doubt. You know what I mean? It's just.
Well, Koba was looking for some justifications, but I mean, he got it. Like they were humans were being cautious and they were stockpiling and they were just in case if things don't work out, because the whole reason this whole conflict exists is they need power, and I suppose there's a dam with a generator up in the mountains, which are the apes' territory, and the humans need to go there because if they don't have power, they believe it's going to be all out anarchy. And if there's anarchy, apparently the way they talked about it is in the past there was anarchy and it was every man for himself and it was hell on earth and they just started to rebuild. But if they don't have power, they won't be able to rebuild. So and then of course the apes. You understand both points of view and why there's conflict, and I like it. It's just it's a great.
It was no matter what, it was gonna end up that way. I mean, it's sad but true. But I mean, I just like how the end happened. It was like, holy shit, it's just starting now.
I think there's only the more I think about it, there's only one flaw about this movie. The only flaw of this movie of mine is, in order to really appreciate this movie, you kind of need to watch the originals and the first movie, because I think it has a lot more weight.
Well, yeah, they do kind of match them together.
Yes.
They throw, because they go to his place. You see the symbol, and everything, and the window, and they still keep the symbolism there and the imagery. So yeah, I mean, it's like one story. It's not, they're not standalone films where you could just sit and watch this one and go, oh, okay, and not have to watch the other two.
Mm-hmm.
But mainly the first one and the original movies, because it's all going to tie in together, which is cool.
Okay. With that being said, rating-wise, this one's going to be probably my highest, or I'd say for the ones that I've done so far.
I liked it more than the first one.
Out of 5, I'm going to go 4 points. I'm going to go 4.8.
Okay, 4.75.
Okay.
Between 4 3/4.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, I liked it a bit more than the first one, and it was just the development of the characters still more.
And even though the main focus is on Caesar, you got Gary Oldman's character and what he has going on. You have Caesar's son, Caesar. You have Maurice the orangutan. You have Koba. You have all these characters, and they're not being wasted. They're all being put to use. They even have a jackass guy who's constantly. You're gonna be.
That guy. Yeah, but that's why it was good character.
But then Koba beats his ass. Oh, it's fantastic. It's satisfying.
It is satisfying.
The movie, you after the movie's over, you want more. It leaves you wanting more, but it's also satisfying at the same time.
Because you know that the military's coming, and so that's the thing. Because in the very beginning of the movie, it pans. There's just a close up of Caesar's face, of him being this leader. And at the end, he's just like, it's just back to his face. Is like, what the fuck are we gonna do now? Because they're coming.
They've thought this movie so well out. They even got the symbol on the damn disc. Man, they just don't miss with all the details in this movie. I mean, especially like the first one, they were paying a lot of attention to detail, and you can just tell that when it came to this continuation of the original, that they absolutely loved the originals and paid a lot of homage to it. And I think sometimes what ends up happening, I'm going to say something about the new Star Wars, is sometimes newer trilogies just want to kind of like tear apart old concepts or old the old ways need to burn, kind of like thinking about Luke Skywalker burning the temple, right? Out with the old, right? this is not really out with the old. This is kind of like the old was cool, and we're just going to try to build upon that and kind of make it so it all flows together in a cool way.
Great prequels. So we'll be back with the final one. Hopefully, it's as good as this one. War is it? Is that?
Yeah, it's War
for the Planet
Woody Harrelson.
War of the Planet Apes. So 4.75.
4.8.
All right. That's it. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you think. And, we'll see you on the next film. Bye.
Later.